Welcome to the Productivity Show, a podcast where we believe you can get the important things done without sacrificing your health, your family, and things that matter to you. This is Brooks from Asian Efficiency, where we help people become more productive at work and in life. And in this episode, I finally ditched my coworker, Tan. He's out of here. Instead, I've upgraded and I've got Kaci Ackerman here. Kaci's a certified business manager who implements productivity systems and workflows in businesses. Of course, we love that, and helps them automate, which anyone who listens to the show knows I really love that. And most important, scale. And Kaci is also a ClickUp expert. Now, ClickUp is a tool that we have criminally not talked enough about on the podcast, even though I know a lot of our listeners and our customers use it or are curious about it. So we are going to be diving into automation, systemization, ClickUp, and a bunch of other topics. Even if you are listening to this and you're not a business owner, we're still going to have a lot for you. Don't worry about that. So with all that said, welcome, Kaci. How is it going?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to chat with you today.
Yeah. And for those who listen to the podcast will know, we always start every single episode with our top 3 resources. So these are 3 things that we're loving lately that are making us more productive. And usually Tan or I do it, but when we have a guest, we like to put you on the hot seat. Kaci, do you have 3 resources you wanted to share with us?
Yeah, so the first one obviously is ClickUp. That's my favorite. But also inside that, or other pieces, I love time blocking and actually just taking 15 minutes to plan my week. So the 3 of those combined really allow me to focus on only working about 20 hours a week, and then allowing a lot of white space on my calendar.
Love the white space. And we will have links to ClickUp and anything else we talk about in the show notes by going to theproductivityshow.com, or you can just swipe in your podcast player and you'll see all the links and stuff like that there. All right, Kaci, I gave you a little bit of an introduction. We talked about what you do at a kind of a high level, but maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself, what's going on, and how you ended up doing what you're doing, because I'm sure it's kind of a roundabout way, I'm going to guess.
It may be. So I live in Idaho, first of all, with my husband, and we absolutely love the outdoors and forests and all that kind of stuff. So we love it here. But how I got started, so my business in general started during COVID. It's a COVID business, if you will. But I was an office manager, and we had to close our office for a period of time. And I was like, you know what? I want a change. So I took that opportunity and I replaced my income and never looked back. But I will say that this has been a lifelong kind of progression for me, because I remember back when I was like 7 years old, my stepdad had his own business and my mom was kind of the, admin person there and helped him with that. And I would go in there like 7 and 8 years old and help her with paperwork and help her organize things and help her, with these different pieces. And so it's literally progressed since I've been a little child. And it's progressed into obviously, what it is now. But I love everything admin, organization. You should see our house. It's very organized. In my personal life, there's a lot of organization. So it just fit the bill, if you will,
It's so funny. My parents owned businesses growing up. My dad had a car dealership, and later my mom had a jewelry store. And it was exactly the same. I would be in my dad's office typing in the customer orders into the computer because no one else wanted to do it. And I like that sort of thing. And then at the jewelry store, ostensibly, I was supposed to be out selling. Probably would have been better use of my time, honestly. But I'd always be in the back, like organizing stuff, helping with the bills, all that type of stuff. I've always gravitated to that as well. So maybe that's why you and I are both doing what we're doing, is because we've always been interested in that productivity business side. So you definitely have, I think a through line of this episode is going to be, I think you and I are kindred spirits in a lot of ways with this stuff. Yeah. So that's great. So I mentioned that you are a certified business manager, and another title I've heard people use is online business manager. And this isn't a role you hear about every day. I think it's getting more and more common, but maybe you could tell us some of the things that you do now that you've made the transition from managing a physical business to helping people online. What's the certified part, and what does an online business manager do?
Yeah. So the certified part of it is I was in a three-month cohort, and then I went through a week-long of testing process where I had 5 different projects that I had to complete within that week, and I was tested on my, how well I did. But really, I like to just say it's an office manager, but for online. It really is. You're doing the team management. You're making sure that the projects are obviously on time. You're supporting people where needed. You are, creating new efficiencies in the business. You're pulling the business owner out of that day to day and really allowing them to focus on the business or the vision of their business rather than all the little pieces that have to get done. So that's kind of, I like to say it's just the online version of an office manager.
Do people find it difficult to give up a lot of stuff? Because I know that's something we talk about a lot, is delegation, all that sort of stuff. And it's really easy for some people. Some people can kind of see the dollar signs and do the mental calculation. But I know for a lot of us, it's very, very difficult to give up those tasks, especially when they're the tasks that got us to where we are now. Do you find a lot of resistance, or by the time they're willing to work with you, they're like, yeah, go for it?
Yeah, I have seen some resistance, but actually not as much. I think it's something that, as you're owning your business, you start to see there's so much I don't have to be doing. There's so much that I can outsource or automate. And I actually really focus on the automation side because there's actually a lot of stuff that we do in our day-to-day that doesn't need a person anymore with technology. Or it can support that person, in doing whatever task it may be. So I do find typically when you're at a point where you need an OBM, you are also at a certain kind of revenue point to where you kind of know, like, okay, it does not make sense that I'm doing these things, and so it seems to be a little easier to let go.
What's kind of the low-hanging fruit for automation? When you go in and work with a new customer, is there generally things that you're just like, oh yeah, we're going to do this, 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 and this, or is everything different?
Everything that I do is usually custom, but I will say there is usually low-hanging fruit, and it's often like communication. There's different pieces where we automate emails going out to people based off of their projects. We automate task handoff or, delegation in that sense. So when it's somebody else's turn, we automate where the other person already knows. There's no question. We can automate notifications of, like, hey, this task is ready for you. We can automate. Oh, there's so much. I could go on and on.
Hey, please go for it. I'd love to know the sorts of things that really are helpful for automation.
We automate a lot of task creation as well. So rather than us actually manually adding in every single task with a description and subtasks and all this kind of stuff, you can actually automate that, especially when we're talking about like marketing pieces, because a lot of times you have the same template that you work off of and you just need to kind of fill in, the caption or the content or different pieces. So we can take so much off their plate in just those pieces where you start to think about, like, even if you are organized, it starts to become more about efficiency versus, because you can be super organized, but is it actually efficient what you're doing,
The people that you work with, I can see it seems like almost a no-brainer if you are somebody who owns an online business, like maybe you're selling something online or doing courses or something like that. It seems like a pretty no-brainer that you would hire an online business manager to help you. Is that typically who uses this type of service? Or if somebody's listening to this and they, I don't know, have a store or something like that, or something more physical or local, is there still benefit to that as well? Or is it pretty much online only?
I would say for business management, it's more of an online thing, but I do see a lot of physical businesses at this point actually hiring virtual assistants. And how I help, like, I help a lot of local businesses where we live too, and we actually get them set up to hire a virtual assistant so they don't have to worry about the communication of, oh, I need you to do this. I need you to do that. So I get them all set up and ready to go. And then they hire a virtual assistant that can kind of help with the admin stuff versus the actual customer service side, of a local business where you need somebody obviously answering phones and saying hello when people walk in the door. But you can outsource the admin piece of that. So, but when we're talking online business manager, I would say typically you're going to be looking at, courses, coaches, large, I'm not sure, podcasts, stuff like that, when you're looking at very much online space.
Actually, you bring up a good point. You mentioned virtual assistants, and people listening to this might be wondering, what's the difference between an online business manager and a virtual assistant? I'm sure there's probably some overlap, but I'm going to guess there's quite a few differences as well. So what's the difference there?
Yeah, the biggest difference is you can see a virtual assistant as very much a doer, a task doer, very much like they have their tasks. That's what they do every single day, where an OBM is more so making sure that those things are getting done, not necessarily doing them. They're also looking at like how to build more efficiency inside the business, or find more ways to automate things, or find ways to make, the team's life easier. Because when all of those pieces are working really well together, the business grows. You're more efficient, you're getting more done in less time, meaning you can focus on, getting more clients or selling more courses or whatever it may be. But the OBM is really the delegation part of it. And also the management of the team and making sure they're supported, where a virtual assistant is very much like, these are your tasks, this is what you do, and kind of supporting the OBM in that sense.
If someone's a business owner or maybe even a manager, how do they know? Like you were saying, once you get to a certain revenue level, you kind of know there's things you probably need to change. What are some of the signs that they might need an online business manager or even a virtual assistant? But what are kind of like the warning signs that it's time to start looking for something like that?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things is if you are too much in your business, if you are spending your whole day managing the team, checking your projects, checking all of these pieces to make sure that your business is running, and you're not able to actually be on the other side of that, where you're making those connections, you're fostering, new relationships, you're getting out there to grow your business, that kind of comes in the idea of like, okay, maybe I need somebody to help me actually manage the inside so that I can focus on the outside, if you will.
Is there a kind of education piece there? Like if you see somebody that is spending too much time working in their business, how do you approach that? Do you have kind of like go-to phrases that you use to break it to them gently, or are generally people pretty receptive?
Well, first of all, I guess one thing you should know about me is I'm very blunt and honest. But there are some things, there's some feelings there. If you're feeling extremely overwhelmed in the day-to-day of your business, if you feel like you're stuck in the weeds, working sun up to sundown, trying to manage your team, but you feel like things are still getting dropped, those feelings around your business is where things need to change, because you're not going to be able to get to where your vision is at or your revenue goals if you are stuck in kind of the storm, if you will.
Do you get a lot of pushback, or not pushback, but do you have to do a lot of education on, like, I'm sure some people come to you and they're like, Kaci, I need help. Like, you got to help me out here. But I'm sure there is a piece of educating business owners about the value of having an online business manager, especially if they're like, it sounds great, but I just don't know if I can bring myself to spend the money. How do you do that reframe for them to help them along that path?
Yeah. So I like using kind of a education based on the idea of outsourcing. So if you outsource, $500 to a videographer, but your client is paying you $1,500 for the package, you're now, obviously you're getting $1,000 out of that because you've outsourced that. And you can also bring on another client because now you have the time that you're no longer video editing. And so it's kind of that same idea of how much time are you spending in your business doing all of those pieces, where if all of that time was open to you, where would you be spending it, and how would your business grow if you had someone kind of come in and help you take in the day-to-day, and really understanding, I'll say online business managers usually run anywhere from 1,500 and up per month. So you have to kind of think of that on obviously a revenue and math side too. But understanding the white space in the calendar, of what's that going to open up for you. And once your OBM is really kind of seasoned in your business, how much more is that going to open up for you to be able to either have energy for more launches, or energy for more, speaking events, or energy for more conferences, whatever it may be that's going to reach you to your next goals. You can't do that if you are bogged down in that day to day. And so I like using that kind of education of simple math, if you will, of how to kind of move the needle forward.
How long does it, obviously it depends on the client, but how long does it generally take to get up to speed? Because I'm sure you go into these companies and you might know nothing about the specific industry. How much time does it take to get up to speed and learn the systems and stuff like that?
Yeah. I would say usually for an OBM, it's about 3 months to really, really get seasoned and able to kind of 100% take the reins. Usually the first month is a lot of auditing and a lot of like picking apart pieces and figuring out, is this broken? Can this be more efficient? Learning the team and what they see as, leaky buckets, if you will, and really discovery mode. And then the second one is like building out that plan. And the third one is taking care of obviously anything that's going on, but also moving that needle forward and starting to make those implementation changes, if there are any, and then also taking on the full day-to-day role.
Do you ever go into a company and they're showing you how it works? They're showing you their email, they're showing you their CRM or whatever, and they're almost proud of it. Like, oh yeah, this is what we do. This is what we do. And you're like, no, I know you think it's working, but it's really not working the way it could be. Do you ever face that situation, or do people kind of know that things aren't working?
All the time. I would say probably almost every client that I work with, they're like, oh, we just need a little bit here or a little bit there. And I'm like, no, there's always so much. And that's actually like where the zone of genius, if you will, comes in, and how you're saying, like, even when you were younger, you would help with the admin side of stuff. So like, I have this passion and like knack for immediately knowing when something's inefficient, and other people have amazing skills that I am awful at, which is why I don't do those things. Right. And so it's very easy to feel like everything is fantastic because you maybe don't, as the business owner, don't have the brain for how systems could be efficient or how they could be best organized. And that's totally okay because you're very much skilled in a completely different area.
So we're going to be talking about ClickUp in a moment. Are there other tools that you find works really well that are kind of like your go-to when you go into a business? Like ClickUp will do your tasks and stuff like that, but what other tools are kind of your go-tos?
Yeah, so when we work with clients, I usually always integrate Zapier and Dubsado, which is a CRM, if they don't already have something else or we use their CRM that they're using, and actually connect those pieces with ClickUp. So they marry really well to allow a lot more automation going on. Rather than having, a long task list, we have automation set up to take care of the tasks for them.
Sorry, what was that CRM?
Dubsado.
Dubsado. Oh, never heard of that one.
Yeah.
That's pretty rare.
Have you heard of HoneyBook?
Yep.
Okay, so it's almost the same.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think it's just based off preference.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing, right? Once we have something that works really well for us, we know it, then we know what it can do. Like you were saying, that zone of genius. When we know what impact a certain tool can have, it's almost a no-brainer unless there's a reason not to do it.
Right.
All right. Well, I mentioned ClickUp, so we might as well get into it. This is your time to be a ClickUp salesperson and take us to task for not giving us enough love for the last 400 plus episodes. So maybe you can start off with just describing what ClickUp is and what you do with it when you put it into a company.
Yeah. So ClickUp is a project management tool. It is much like Trello, Asana, Monday, Basecamp, Notion, all very similar. The reason I picked ClickUp is because you can grow with it, or it grows with you. And so oftentimes what I hear is I've outgrown, this other tool, and that doesn't happen with ClickUp. You can use it in a very simple way. You can also use it in a very robust way. And so I love it for that reason. And it allowed me in my business, and also when I transform, other people's businesses, we ditch things like Google Drive, Google Docs, Forms. ClickUp has all of those pieces, and we're able to integrate that with the rest of their business. So they are now being able to be very laser focused in their day-to-day of working directly outside of ClickUp, if you will. To where there's no distractions really. Even though I'm type A and organized, I'm a big distraction. So if I go and click into Google Drive and I have to click, 7 folders to get where I need to go, I don't often get there right on the first time. But ClickUp eliminates that kind of stuff, and it eliminates the distraction of having to use brain power also to go other places, which depletes your mental energy.
So it does projects, which means clearly it does tasks, but it sounds like it also will do docs, so you can have SOPs and checklists and stuff like that. And does it also do calendars and that type of stuff as well?
So it does docs, and it has forms, and then it also has a calendar view where you can connect your Google Calendar inside ClickUp. And that's actually one of my favorite features because I work off of the calendar view. Since I plan my week, I can drag my tasks in around my meetings and, different stuff that I'm doing to make sure that I'm building a manageable workload every single week for myself. So I don't feel like, I worked 10 hours today and didn't get anything done. I have a very clear outline of what my week is going to look like for the most part. And it has forms, so you can utilize those for team members. You can utilize them for your clients. Another thing I love using the docs for are, team meetings or client meetings, SOPs for sure. We have an entire SOP library in our ClickUp. So every single task that we do has an SOP connected to it, meaning anybody could pick up that task and know exactly what they need to do. And so it's just overall great. Like there's no copy and pasting because it's inside ClickUp. You can create tasks directly from your docs by just highlighting what you want a task to be, which is really cool. And it, like I said, it eliminates a lot of copy paste type stuff.
Let's back the truck up for a moment because I'm very intrigued by your weekly planning comment. So maybe you could talk us through that process. When do you plan your week? Do you kind of have a set, you have a set time that you do it every week? And it sounds like what you do is you have a calendar and you kind of build it up. You talked about time blocking before. So maybe you could walk us through your philosophy and process for planning your week. 'Cause that must actually be very difficult when you've got multiple clients and you never know when something's going to blow up. So yeah. How does that all work?
Yeah, so I plan my week every Monday at 9 is when I usually start my days around 9 or 9:30. But every Monday at 9, I have what ClickUp does is it has filters. And so I have my tasks set up that I only need to see that pertain to me. And so I then have my Google Calendar connected to ClickUp. And what it does is I can actually drag and drop tasks directly throughout the calendar. And so I'm able to leave white space. I'm able to, consolidate different projects, if you will, so that I'm not, every day working on the same thing. I can make sure that I'm really focusing on the project at hand and then moving on to something different the next day, if that's, what's on my plate that week. And so I just go through, I make it very much what works for me. And I think that's really important as well, is, everybody's brain works differently. Everyone is organized differently. And so I just built it where I drag in my tasks, and I know that I typically work from 9 to 3, 9 to 4-ish area. And so as long as I have those tasks on there and I have some white space as well, I'm good to go. And I can endure a blow up.
And so how does it work if you get to the end of the day and maybe you have a few things that are left there on that day that you weren't able to get to? Do you just drag it to the next day or back to a backlog, or how does that work?
So Fridays I leave for no new tasks. So Fridays, technically, like if I were to not get something done on Monday through Thursday, I would drag it into that Friday. And that's where I would kind of do my overflow of anything. And then also if I get everything done, I'm not working Friday. So it's kind of a nice way of like not thinking I have to get stuff done on Friday. It's more of, oh, I missed a couple things. And what's also nice is so actually this happened to me today. I had a little extra time, and so I got a task done that I was going to do on Friday. So now that's eliminated out of my Friday little overflow tray.
I like that Friday overflow day. I might actually steal that. That's a great idea. I like that.
Yeah, it's nice because, like I said, I typically like to have Fridays off, and so being able to know that I don't have like actual tasks, they have to get done, and then on top of that, if you don't get something done throughout the week, it's not like you're tacking on more work on Friday. It's just a couple things here and there.
I can see how ClickUp would be super powerful for organizations because it's got the collaboration stuff, the integrations, all that type of stuff. If somebody's listening to this and they're just like, hey, I really just need to get my personal tasks, like forget about business. I'm not a business owner or whatever. Do you think ClickUp could be good for someone's personal productivity, or do you think it's a little too heavyweight for that?
I use it for my personal stuff, and I do think that people can. I love it because I have a business, and I also obviously have a home that, tasks need to get done at home as well. And so I actually have a separate account though. So, it's not connected to my business account because I like keeping those things separate. So if you are a business owner and there's personal, you can separate things by having 2 separate accounts. But if you're just personal, you can still use it because I have stuff in there that recur for me, and it reminds me because I 100% will forget to do those things if they are not reminding me. And what's nice on the personal side is I have the personal side connected to my phone. So it will tell me like, hey, you have a task coming up. And then I'll be like, oh, we got to do, whatever this evening with my husband if we have something going on that ClickUp is just reminding us of. So it's no longer like having to rely on my brain to remember personal things anymore, or writing down sticky notes. I hate sticky notes, by the way, side note. But it's not writing down on sticky notes, having it collect dust. It's not a notebook that you're trying to like brain dump a huge list to and then not really get to it because there's so many things on there that can be really overwhelming.
If you're a personal user, I know there's a free plan. If you're a personal user, do you think the free plan is enough, or do you think you're going to hit a wall pretty quickly and need to upgrade?
No, 100% the free plan. Yeah, like as a personal user, I think that that's very doable to use that free plan. And, at some point, ClickUp is really cool because it's a free plan, and then it has limits, if you will, of like how many times you can use a certain custom field. So basically what I tell people, even as business owners, I tell people to use the free plan until ClickUp says like, oh, you ran out of your limits, and then you upgrade. So definitely free plan though.
Right on. Is there anything that you wish it could do better, or any features that you're hoping they're going to add someday in the future, or is it pretty good as is?
I was thinking about that, and no, there's not. I love it so much. They do roll out new like updated features, and they're constantly working on things, but I don't miss anything. And actually, I love that I've been able to eliminate so many things, so I'm so happy about that I'm like, I'm good.
You mentioned some of the stuff that you've implemented with customers. Do you have any like cool automations you've set up that you wanted to call out, or any cool systems set up that somebody listening to this might be like, ooh, I want to try that too?
Yeah, actually, I just worked with a marketing agency a couple weeks ago, and we set up this really cool system where it's a tagging system inside ClickUp. And what they can do is they can look at a calendar view and see for the week of March 8th through the 9th, they're working on content creation for X client. So they're not actually having to put the client name in there anymore, because it's an automatic tag that goes in there. And then the business owner can also see what's going on with her team members. She has 4 team members. So she can also see oh, cool, this person's working on this client and this, all those different pieces. And so it's a great overview feature that I love. And then they go into the client to kind of actually get the task done.
Yeah, I can see how that can be really useful if you're a business owner or a manager, because that's the tough part, right? Is having easily visibility of what everybody's doing and where everything is, without having to go in and check out a bunch of different projects and stuff like that. Having that visibility sounds pretty great.
Yeah, they have 18 clients, so going to every single one would be pretty overwhelming. ClickUp also has dashboards, and so they have that calendar view, but then they also have a dashboard where she can easily see where the workload is going as well, and also see if anybody's behind and needs support, those different things too. So ClickUp has dashboards where you can pull in all sorts of information and build an overview there as well.
So let's say you help a business owner set up some automation, whether it's ClickUp or not. Maybe it's just using whatever they have now. You've helped them systemize things, you've helped them automate things, and you were talking about helping them create that white space that maybe they didn't have before. What sorts of things does the business owner do then? What are some examples of things that have been unlocked by having all this free time all of a sudden?
Yeah. Growth is a really big piece of that. And actually the marketing agency that I just did, she just posted 2 new job hirings because now she has the availability to go and get more clients, because she's not bogged down in this day-to-day of trying to figure out what's going on every single day with her team members. And so it really shows that white space. I also like to say, white space doesn't mean that you have to go get more clients or have more growth in your business. That white space could be your personal life. That white space could be volunteering at your kids' school or going and taking a nap. So I like to talk about white space, not just in scaling and really honing in on business growth, but a lot of times that's what they do. A lot of times they're like, oh my gosh, I have all this time now. I'm just going to get more clients and have this great revenue jump. And hire people to manage this stuff for me because I got it all set up, and now they need kind of an admin assistant at that point because ClickUp does a lot of the heavy lifting.
Do people ever have trouble making that transition, knowing what to do? Do you ever have to do education and giving suggestions hey, maybe now you can do X or Y? Or do people generally have a list of things that they're waiting to do and now they can do it?
I would say it's definitely education. Oftentimes when I work with somebody and I'm getting them set up in ClickUp, as I'm setting it up, I'm like, you should not be doing these things. And I'm like, you need to do this, this, and this, and you need to focus on these areas, and you need to hire somebody for this. And so I'm really showing them the possibilities. And oftentimes I would say the transition is actually very easy because they're so excited to have the freedom and the availability to focus on the things they actually want to focus on. Oftentimes they don't really know what they need to offload, but they do know that they don't want to be in their business as much. And so that's kind of I want to focus on my marketing, or I want to focus on meeting new clients, but they don't know how to do that because of all this. So I go in and say, okay, well, these are the pieces you can remove so you can do those things. And also I have a ClickUp course. And so whenever somebody works with me, they get loads of training videos around ClickUp too. So their whole team has that. And so it allows the transition to be a lot easier because they have videos to help them. They have support from me for up to 3 months. And so it really gives them like, they can reach out to me if they're like, wait a second, this isn't working, or my team member is not understanding this. Can we hop on a call? Like, I'm open to that kind of stuff too.
I guess I should ask, what's the on-ramp like with ClickUp? I know you have a course and that's super awesome. And we'll make sure to have a link to your course in the show notes for sure. But if you're just coming into ClickUp cold, is it easy to learn? Do they do a good job onboarding people? Is their help and training pretty good? Or is it a little overwhelming at first?
I would say a little bit of everything. I could say that it's overwhelming. A lot of people will send me a message and they're like, I created a ClickUp account and there were so many features and so many colors and so many, things that overwhelmed me and I closed the screen. That's usually what they say to me. But it's really just about starting small. So if you've never used ClickUp before, I encourage you to just start small. Start with like one list and, put your tasks there and check them off and just get comfortable with it. ClickUp does have a few tutorials when you first log in, and they do have an entire, what they call university. So they have a ton of training videos that you can watch and learn more about ClickUp. They also have a fantastic support. And so you can chat with support and ask them like, I don't know how to do this. And they'll, or if something's not working, it's either maybe a bug or it's, something that you're just not understanding, and they'll help you as well.
All right. I want to do a little bit of a left turn here because this is another area where I think we're kindred spirits. I was going through your website and I was really excited to see you talking about emergency preparedness in business. And in a past life, I was a client services director for a pretty big company. And one of the things I was really trying to implement and spent a lot of time on is that emergency preparedness, in the sense that if something goes wrong, what do you do? If all of a sudden you can't access your systems, what do you do? If all of a sudden your main person leaves, what do you do? And so I'm curious about your thoughts about emergency preparedness with the business owners you've worked with. Do you have any examples of things that people should just be thinking about, even if they're not a business owner, maybe they're a manager or whatever, but what are some things people should be thinking about for emergency preparedness?
Yeah, I love talking about this because even though it's not fun, it's so needed and no one talks about it. I always like to say it's very easy to plan for vacation. It's very easy to plan for a team member to go on maternity leave, those different things, but you're never planning for something to happen. And I firsthand experienced that in 2021 with multiple things that happened in that year for me. And it got my wheels turning of like, oh my goodness, I need to make sure that there's something in place. I also want to set up my other clients to make sure that this doesn't happen. So first thing is having an SOP, which is standard operating procedure. I don't think we mentioned that in the past, but having something written for every single task you do. That's the first thing. And it does not have to be, this crazy overwhelming task. In fact, Chat GPT allows you to write them very quickly, because if you record a Loom video, you can throw the transcript in there and it will write a step-by-step process for you. So pro tip there. But having those SOPs written for every single thing that is done in the business. The other thing is actually having a team directory. And also I will say all of this is in our ClickUp as well. So we house all of this in there. But having a team directory with their contact info, also an emergency contact info for them if needed, and also having the what if prepared. So what if SOPs? So what if I can't access ClickUp? What if my internet is down for 3 days? What if I am in the hospital for a week and completely out of commission? What if my main lead, team member leaves? Having those written out and understanding, because then anybody can pick that up and say, okay, we need to do X, Y, and Z for those steps. And I think it's important just to think about those things, because like I said, you don't know that it's going to happen until it happens. And the only way you can prepare for it is actually thinking about the worst, if you will, and figuring out, okay, well, what would happen if, this happened? And then saying, I want X, Y, and Z, and we're going to write that out, and we're going to have a team meeting with all of our little emergency procedures, go over them, make sure that the team understands it, so that you guys are prepared. And I think that's the most important piece of it.
Yeah, one of the first things I pitched before joining the AE team was doing a course on backup, and everyone was rolling their eyes. I'm like, no, this is important. No one talks about it. Exactly.
Yes, I know. And it's funny because, my messaging is always, about the fun stuff, but at the same time, it needs to be about like the other stuff that you don't think of and you think will never happen to you until it does.
That's a great tip about using ChatGPT to write SOPs. I never thought about that. We're big on SOPs here, but that is a solid gold tip. I use ChatGPT a lot, but I never thought of doing that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, my virtual assistant, she used to take about 30-ish minutes because she'd have to, literally write out all the steps. And she's been using ChatGPT and it takes her like 10 minutes now.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything that we didn't talk about? Anything you wanted us to get to that we didn't get to?
I don't think so. I think just, using something that works for you. I love ClickUp, but if that's something else, the best project management tool out there is the one that you're going to use every day. And I think that's the most important piece of this. But obviously my vote will always be ClickUp.
All right. Well, Kaci, this was really great. That ChatGPT at the end, you're coming in clutch right at the end. But this is a great episode. I'm really excited learning more about everything that business managers do and ClickUp and all that sort of stuff. Those who listen to the podcast will know we always want the end of each episode to be actionable. When people stop listening, we want to have one thing for them to take away and do at the end. So if you were to recommend an action item for people after listening to this episode, what would you like them to do?
I would like them to get started. So if you are not using a project management tool, to get started with one. If you are using a project management tool, but you don't have SOPs, get started with those. So any piece of this, podcast that you listen to that maybe you are lacking in, get started. That is the biggest thing. You have to do it. I swear at the end of the tunnel, when you're done, you're going to be like, wow, I can't believe I didn't do this sooner.
Speed of execution. I love it.
Yes.
All right. If somebody wants to learn more about you, wants to get at some of the resources that we talked about today, where's the best place for people to find you online?
Yeah, so I hang out a lot on Instagram, so you can definitely come say hello on Instagram at Kaci Ackerman. I also have my website, kaciackerman.com, and there you can find a getting started freebie. There I have a 10-step guide on getting started with ClickUp. So if you're interested in getting started with ClickUp and you're overwhelmed or intimidated, grab that. And it's a quick, easy 30-minute little getting started guide.
Fantastic. This episode was not brought to you by ClickUp, just so you know, but that's okay. But still, it's a great tool. I know, like I said, a lot of you listeners use it and love it. And if people want to get access to all the links to everything that we talk about, go to theproductivityshow.com or just swipe in your podcast player. And thank you so much, Kaci. I really appreciate it. And we will see you all next Productive Monday.